So don't ever say that nothing happens in Canada. This country has a reputation for being a boring country, but lately that definitely hasn't been the case. Now what we've seen lately is with these supposed uncoveries of bodies at residential schools, which again, what does it indicate? That a bunch of Native children died, but again, under what circumstance, and, does it indicate in any way a deliberate genocide? Regardless, there's been that, and then there's also been these record-breaking temperatures in the Northwest that have produced horrendous forest fires and deadly heat waves that have killed a number of people. Mostly, old people, same type of people who would have died from COVID. But regardless, I think these two events showcase both the failures of the Canadian left and the Canadian right, or just the left and the right more broadly speaking. And they show how we really need a new ideology that falls outside the left-right paradigm. Well, it's not really a new ideology because the idea of third positionism has existed for a long time. But what I think we need is a form of third positionism that is more applicable to the present day. Now, why do these instances show the failures of both the left and the right? Well, for starters, look at the left's reaction to the residential schools. Their reaction is to burn down churches and to support the burning down of churches. Many of these churches are historic. There was one in Alberta in the town of Morinville that I believe is over 100 years old, and it's probably like the only old building in that entire town. Like a town like Morinville, it's basically an exurb of Edmonton, so it's like a suburb of a suburb. Of course, in that kind of community, you're going to get mostly like shitty, hideous, sprawling suburban architecture. And it's like, that church was probably the only historic building in the entire town, and now it's gone. And these people would go further. If they had the opportunity, they would burn down Notre Dame in Montreal. They would burn down Notre Dame in Ottawa, or any of the historic churches in Ottawa or Montreal or Quebec City. They would gladly do that. Or the historic churches in Toronto. They would gladly do that if they had the opportunity. And the same people would justify it. These same white liberals would defend Native protesters burning down Notre Dame in Montreal, even though they've probably been to Notre Dame in Montreal and enjoyed the architecture themselves. But they're such hypocrites. They just won't do it. They just won't come out and say that this is wrong, because at the end of the day, to them, equity is more important than beauty. And equity is more important than the preservation of heritage. So to them, it's like, oh, we can't criticize how Black or Native people protest, even if it means destroying beautiful historic buildings in a country that frankly has too few of them. We've already seen so much of our heritage destroyed by modernization and stupidity. Basically, mostly not ideology driven, but mostly greed driven. I mean, a little bit of it has been ideology-driven, like what happened to the Royal Ontario Museum and 1 Spadina Crescent at the University of Toronto. But most of it has been greed-driven, and it's still happening today. But yeah, I mean, all they care about is what they call equity. They don't care about art for the sake of art anymore. I remember a time when liberals actually did hold the opinion that there was value in art for the sake of art or beauty for the sake of beauty. Evidently not anymore. And those who do believe in it are not willing to speak out. So, fuck the left on that account. Fuck them for condoning this shit. Fuck them for supporting this shit. And fuck them for doing this shit in many cases. Like, I don't believe that every one of these fires was set by natives. I mean, judging by the recent track records, I'd say at least some of them were probably set by white leftists. So, fuck the left for that. And by the way, I'm not trying to say that all the architectural destruction in Canada is caused by radical leftism. A lot of it is caused simply by greed and by libertarianism. Like, for instance, in Toronto, a lot of beautiful old homes are being ruined by idiots who feel the need to renovate these homes. with modernist shit that just like these modernist facelifts that completely ruin the entire appearance of the house. And again, it's not just the left who are behind this. Libertarians are, they support this too. They would say, oh, it's their private property. They should be allowed to do what they want with it. I say no, fuck their private property. If you live in a historic building, you should have to abide by certain rules. If you don't like that, then don't live in a historic building. Don't live in any pre-World War II buildings. Like, live in some fucking ugly modernist piece of shit if that's your attitude. If you're an eternal renovator, you know, wherever I go, I must also renovate. Don't live in a historic building. But anyway, yeah, I mean, my point is, it's not just the left behind this. And granted, it's not just about architecture either. It's also about the fact that these churches symbolize the entire white culture of Canada, which is basically under attack in a broader sense. All these issues coalesce here, and it just shows how disgusting the left are. They don't care about art. They don't care about architecture. They don't care about our cultural heritage. They don't care about preservation or tradition. All they care about is constantly pandering to the interests of angry groups with grievances, no matter how far they take it. And as you can see in South Africa, when it gets taken to the extent of actually murdering random white people, the left will hold water for them in that case too. They